I'm back to do a quick review of the iPhone 11 and to tell you why I recommended it over the 11 Pro. So let's go ahead and check it out. Alright, so last week I did my full review of the iPhone 11 Pro. If you're looking for a more in-depth review of the iPhone 11 in general, you should definitely check that out because I kind of went over some of the stuff with the camera. This review is not going to be as in-depth because a lot of the same stuff that applies to the iPhone 11 Pro also applies to the iPhone 11. So I'm going to talk about in this video some of the things that are similar and different about both of the phones. So let's quickly go over the similarities. They both have the same front-facing camera and Face ID sensor. They both share two of the rear cameras, the standard wide and the ultra wide, and they both have the same internals including the A13 processor. So let's talk about some of the things that makes this phone different and what makes this phone great. The one thing that differentiates the iPhone 11 from the Pro is the colors, man. The colors. So the iPhone 11, in my opinion, is way more exciting. You have a variety of colors. You have black, white, yellow, green, purple, red. I'm sorry, product red, which is actually the color that Jeff got. They really spoke to him. And that's one of the things that's kind of cool about it. Because when I talk to people about the 11 Pro and the 11, I'm talking about people outside of the tech community, people that I work with, other friends who are just not as invested in technology as I am. The ones that happen to be in the iPhone community that are interested in it at all, they're not talking about getting the 11 Pro. They're talking about getting their favorite colors. In a lot of cases, the iPhone 11, the way it looked, you can kind of choose the color you want. That really spoke to them. That spoke to Jeff. He actually had the XS last year, so he technically stepped down as far as models just because the iPhone 11 spoke to him so much, and that does kind of stand out to me. Now with the Pro, of course, you have space gray, silver, gold, and then they introduced midnight green. A lot of people were excited about the midnight green, but the colors just aren't as exciting. You get a lot more variety in colors. You can kind of pick something that matches your personality. The next thing that's different about this are the rear cameras. So obviously the Pro has 3 cameras. The iPhone 11 has 2. So let's talk about that third camera. So the camera that's missing from the iPhone 11 is a telephoto that gives you the 2x optical zoom. Anybody who's had an older Plus model phone will be familiar with this camera, as it's kind of been standard on those phones for a long time, or anybody that had the XS from last year or the 10. So it's the thing, you have the 2x button in the camera app and you hit it to zoom in. So no, this does not have 2x optical zoom. This has digital zoom. So you can still zoom in. So I'm going to put up side-by-side pictures with the iPhone 11 Pro using optical zoom versus the iPhone 11 using digital zoom. As you can see, yes, the Pro does have more detail when it comes to the optical zoom, obviously because you're switching over to that lens. You're not cropping a picture like we're doing with the iPhone 11, but I still think that the iPhone 11 looks pretty good. It's obviously a bit softer. There's a little less detail in the picture. The colors look a little bit more washed out, but most people I don't think are really going to care that much, especially because you're still getting the same wide and ultra wide lens, which the wide is technically just the standard. They're just calling it the wide now. I think that not having that telephoto lens and saving $300 is worth it, in my opinion. And the other thing we have to talk about that's different is the screen. So with the iPhone 11, you're getting an LCD screen that the resolution is around 720p. With the iPhone 11 Pro, you're getting the OLED screen with the resolution around, it's basically like 2K, so it's like half 4K resolution. For a lot of people, that won't really matter because the iPhone 11 still looks really good. Like honestly, sometimes Jeff leaves his phone on the table and I'm mistaken for mine because I'm not, like unless you're really looking for it, the difference is if you put them side by side, then clearly you can tell the difference. Like here when I'm playing this video, and then the home screen as well. Like yes, the iPhone 11 Pro looks brighter. It has a wider color gamut, so you're getting more color. It obviously supports HDR content. So like if you're watching Netflix, you can watch things with HDR on. And it does make a difference. But if you're not looking at them side by side, you're not going to notice day to day. If you don't watch a lot of movies that have HDR or higher quality content, it's really not going to matter that much that you pick the phone that doesn't have the OLED screen, especially when we're talking about the price difference. Now, the iPhone 11 screen to me is still really sharp. It still looks really good. Anybody that's coming from an older iPhone, like an 8 or older, they're probably going to love the screen because it's still the same great screen that you had on those phones, but it's a lot bigger. And while the screen, of course, can't match OLED levels, like I said, it still looks pretty damn good. All right, so that's the differences between the two. So let's go over some of the pros. Obviously, you're still getting 2 of the 3 great cameras. The front-facing camera is the same, so you can still have all the slow fees you want. You know, take those gorgeous slow fee videos that you guys love. Another pro for me personally that I looked at is it does have the 128GB option for only $50 more. So with the iPhone 11 Pro, they both start off at 64 gig, both the 11 and the 11 Pro. But for me, someone who's been upgrading for years, I have more than 64 gigs worth of data on my phone already. So I definitely have to go up to the next storage option, which forced me to spend an extra $100 to go up to 256, because that's the next step up for the Pro. It goes from 64 to 256 to 512, while you have the 11 that goes from 64 to 128 to 256. And the reason that this is a Pro for me is because the 128 is only $50 more, and that's a good amount of space for most people. Like if I had the option for 128, I could only spend $50 more, I definitely would have gotten that. So that's definitely a Pro for me. With the storage options, you could look at it as a downside to not have the 512 option on the 11. I don't think it's really a downside. I don't know, I don't personally know anybody that's using that 512 option, and I think a lot of people that are probably wouldn't mind just paying the extra to get the Pro. If you need that much space, you're probably doing a lot more on your phone than just, what the conventional user is doing. And speaking of that, let's go over to some of the cons. Now, these aren't really big cons to me. They're kind of nitpicks about things that probably could be a little bit better, but you should be aware of when purchasing an iPhone 11. The first thing is the size option. Like again, this is really a nitpick, but Apple's position on the iPhone 11 is right in the middle of both the Pro models. So with the Pro, they do give you more options as far as size. Like for instance, me, I went with the 11 because my main thing was I wanted the smallest phone possible, and that's the 5.8 inch. If you want the biggest phone possible, they have the Pro Max, which is a 6.5 inch. The regular 11 sits right in the middle, which is a great size. I think for most people, this size is perfect because you can still hold it in your hand. The screen's bigger than the smaller Pro, but it's not too big where it's difficult to hold like the Max. That was the reason that I switched from the Max. I had a 10s Max last year. It was way too big. But let's hop back over to the 11. Like I said, this is probably not even a con for most people. I'm just listing it as a con because it's something I thought about. If you really want to go down to a smaller phone, like, hey, I just want this smaller phone, you have to pay more money. And that sucks. I really think that Apple should offer a smaller version of the 11. I mean, technically they offer the 8 still, but you want that new screen design, you want that new form factor. So if you want to go up or down in size, then you do have to go with the Pro. Like I said, this is not really that big of a deal because I think the 6.1 inch is probably the perfect size for most people. The next con is there's no fast charger in the box. So with the 11 Pro and the Pro Max, you do get the 18-watt fast charger, which charges your phone, faster. That's the whole point of it. So Apple's still including the standard 5-watt charger that's come with the iPhone since they've introduced Lightning. I can't even remember which phone that was. I believe it was probably the 5. Even though the phone is cheaper, $700, they could have just thrown in the fast charger. They knocked $50 off of the price from last year's 10R, which the iPhone 11 is a direct replacement for the 10R. The fast charger itself is $50, so technically, you could save that money, that $50 from last year if you were purchasing a 10R, and go and get you a fast charger. I use wireless charging most of the time, so it doesn't really matter to me. I'm getting slow charging either way. It would have been nice for Apple just to bite the bullet and say, hey, here you go. All of our phones have fast chargers now, especially with the decision for them not to switch to USB-C this year. And the last con I'm gonna go over, which is, again, this is really a nitpick. The battery life is just not as long as the Pro. So if you really want the longest battery life, you'll have to go with the Pro. But this is a con, yes, but it's not really worth paying the extra for it. I'm going to tell you why. It's only an hour difference between the 11 and the 5.8 inch iPhone Pro. So the 11 clocks in, or estimated around 17 hours. The Pro starts at 18. The Pro Max goes up to 20. So yeah, you're losing an hour. You're losing 3 hours in comparison to the Max, but you're still saving $300. Again, I listed it as a con because technically if you do want the iPhone with the longest battery life, you'll have to go with that Pro. So in conclusion, yes, the iPhone 11 Pro is the best phone that you can get from Apple, hands down, period. That's not the point of this review. That's not what I'm saying. But it's not the best iPhone for most people because the compromises that you make with the 11 I don't feel like really matter for most people. The biggest reason to get the 11, in my opinion, is probably for the OLED screen or for that camera for people who are a little bit more serious about photography. The OLED screen, if you are into watching content with HDR, you do video editing on your phone or serious photo editing, then that makes sense. It's the Pro. That's who this phone is for. It's for a professional. For most people, if you're not doing any of those things, I think the iPhone 11 just offers a lot more at a way lower price. So that's why I recommend the iPhone 11 over the 11 Pro. And I'm not going to say that anybody is stupid for buying the 11 Pro. I bought the 11 Pro. That's the phone that I have on a daily basis because some of those things were important to me personally. So it's just good to have a look at both phones, to kind of look at everything that's out there, and then make your decision. It's really going to be about what is important to you personally. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, toss a like on it. If you dislike it, you can dislike it. Subscribe for more. I'll be back next week, next Tuesday, with my Apple Watch review, Series 5. Give you my thoughts on that. And always remember to do at least 2 things at the same time. Peace.